At exactly 9:03 in the morning, screens across southern Italy lit up with a signal that instantly unsettled the scientists watching it. This was not the sharp spike of a typical earthquake, not the familiar fingerprint seismologists have learned to recognize over decades of monitoring. What appeared instead was something far stranger and far more unsettling, a prolonged rhythmic pulse that rolled on for more than a full minute beneath Campi Flegrei. Within hours, the Vesuvius Observatory confirmed what residents of Pozzuoli had already sensed in their bones. The ancient volcanic system beneath their homes was not just shifting, it was communicating. This moment followed a worrying sequence of events. On January 14th, a magnitude 2.2 earthquake struck, quickly followed by a 2.5. Together, they marked the 84th seismic event in just 7 days. On its own, none of these numbers would normally trigger global concern. But new breakthrough research has revealed why scientists now view each of these tremors as part of something far more dangerous. These are not isolated quakes. They are components of a coupled system where earthquakes and underground pressure waves interact, amplify each other, and grow stronger with every pulse. Campi Flegrei, researchers say, is behaving less like a typical volcano and more like a massive geological instrument, slowly tuning itself for something far louder. According to recent studies, fractures and magma chambers beneath the caldera are creating resonance signals that can build for years, even decades, before releasing their energy in a catastrophic eruption. Scientists describe it as a giant organ pipe buried beneath southern Italy. When stress and fluids move through this system, it does not simply crack or slip, it vibrates. This is the same volcanic complex that once buried vast parts of Europe in ash and may have helped trigger a climatic collapse that coincided with the disappearance of Neanderthals. Today, that same system lies beneath more than 500,000 people, most of whom go to sleep each night unaware that their city rests inside one of the most powerful volcanic structures on Earth. And the rhythm it is playing is speeding up. To understand why this matters so much, you first need to understand what Campi Flegrei actually is, because this is not a volcano in the way most people imagine one. There is no single cone rising above the landscape, no obvious crater to avoid. Instead, there is a vast depression stretching from the suburbs of Naples into the Gulf of Pozzuoli, roughly 8 miles wide. Across this deceptively peaceful terrain sit more than 24 craters and vents scattered among farmland, neighborhoods, and ancient ruins. The ancient Greeks called this place the Burning Fields, believing it to be an entrance to the underworld. Modern scientists are beginning to think those myths were closer to the truth than anyone realized. Campi Flegrei is what volcanologists call a nested caldera, a colossal volcanic system that has collapsed into itself multiple times after emptying enormous magma chambers below. The first collapse occurred around 39,000 years ago during the Campanian ignimbrite eruption, the largest volcanic explosion Europe has seen in at least 200,000 years. The scale of that event is almost impossible to comprehend. Between 250 and 300 cubic kilometers of material were blasted into the atmosphere, enough to blanket more than 1,000,000 square miles in ash. The eruption column punched deep into the atmosphere, triggering a volcanic winter that may have lowered global temperatures by as much as 9 degrees Celsius in some regions. What makes that ancient disaster especially haunting is its timing. It occurred just as Neanderthals were entering their final decline across Europe. While scientists still debate whether Campi Flegrei delivered the final blow or merely accelerated an extinction already underway, the overlap is chilling. Research suggests fluorine-rich ash from the eruption could have poisoned plants and animals, causing severe fluorosis in any hominins who consumed contaminated food. The land itself became hostile to life. The second major eruption, known as the Neapolitan Yellow Tuff event about 15,000 years ago, expelled another 40 cubic kilometers of material and shaped much of the caldera we see today. After that, the system did not fall silent. It began breathing. Since Roman times, the ground here has risen and fallen in a process called bradyseism, slow vertical movement of the Earth's surface. The marble columns of the Temple of Serapis in Pozzuoli still bear scars from this motion, riddled with holes drilled by marine organisms when the site sank beneath the sea. By around 1000 CE, the area had dropped 11 meters below sea level. Then, by 1538, it had risen 12 meters back up. That uplift did not happen quietly. In the decades leading up to 1538, residents watched shorelines retreat, wells change temperature, and earthquakes become more frequent. On September 29th of that year, the ground finally tore open. Over 7 days, a new mountain rose from nothing. Monte Nuovo climbed 130 meters into the sky, the first eruption witnessed and recorded in modern Europe. 24 people who climbed the new cone out of curiosity were killed when a final explosion caught them on its slopes. After that, Campi Flegrei seemed to settle again. The ground slowly sank, and for nearly 4 centuries the system appeared to sleep. That illusion shattered in the 20th century. In the 1950s, the ground began rising once more. From 1969 to 1972, the caldera floor lifted by about 1.5 meters. Then came the crisis of the early 1980s. Between 1982 and 1984, Campi Flegrei experienced its most intense unrest since Monte Nuovo. The ground rose more than 6 feet, earthquakes struck by the tens of thousands, and Pozzuoli's harbor became too shallow for ships. Buildings cracked, entire neighborhoods were evacuated. More than 40,000 people were permanently relocated, many never returning to their homes. After 1984, the system deflated again, and scientists hoped the danger had passed. But in 2005, the ground began rising yet again. At first it was subtle, just a few centimeters per year. Then, after 2018, seismic activity surged. By 2021, researchers noticed something new, burst-like seismic swarms so dense that individual earthquakes blurred together on instruments. By 2024, the caldera had risen about 1.4 meters since 2005. That May, a magnitude 4.4 earthquake struck, the strongest ever recorded there at the time. Weeks later, an even stronger 4.6 quake hit, setting a new record. In 1 month alone, 2,500 earthquakes were detected. Then came the discovery that truly changed everything. Using AI-powered monitoring systems, researchers realized they had been undercounting seismic activity for years. What had once appeared to be about 12,000 earthquakes between 2022 and 2025 turned out to be more than 54,000, 4 times as many quakes, happening beneath a densely populated urban area. And hidden within that noise, scientists detected something never before observed at Campi Flegrei. Very long-period seismic signals, resonance oscillations lasting up to 90 seconds, emanating from a crack nearly 1 kilometer long buried deep beneath the surface. These signals suggest a pressurized fracture connecting deep magma sources directly to surface fumaroles. When a strong earthquake hits, this structure vibrates like a tuning fork. The system does not just shake, it resonates. Researchers now believe mechanical stress, fluid pressure, and brittle faults beneath Campi Flegrei are interacting as a single, fully coupled system. The last time a caldera showed this level of interconnected behavior, it ended in eruption. The implications are terrifying. More than 500,000 people live within the official red zone that would need to be evacuated before an eruption. Another 800,000 live within the broader caldera. Naples, home to millions more, sits right next door. Italy's emergency plan calls for evacuating 500,000 people in 72 hours, assuming enough warning arrives. Many scientists are no longer confident that guarantee exists. Gas emissions are increasing, the ground continues to rise, sulfur signatures suggest hotter, deeper sources are feeding the system. Campi Flegrei does not look like a volcano, it looks like home. Streets, schools, harbors, and ancient temples sit quietly above a system that may be tuning itself for its next performance. The only question left is when the music stops and the real show begins. If you lived on top of something like this, would you know when to leave? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Would you stay or go if you lived in Pozzuoli? And if you want to stay ahead of the stories most people never see coming, Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Sometimes the most dangerous places on Earth look exactly like paradise, right up until they don't.